people? Welcome to the first Q&A episode. I put a little post on Facebook and on Instagram asking people to ask me anything, hopefully movie related, but they can ask whatever you want, and I got 5 good questions to go over. Keep sending me these questions, guys, and I will do more of these episodes if I get enough of them. If not, if I just get a few here and there, I can always answer these at the end of my movie news episodes every Monday. So, first question, and I'm going to be doing these just in the order that I received them. Eric Cabana asks, how do you feel about Channing Tatum playing Gambit in the new X-Men movie? Now, there is a lot to say about this Gambit movie, so first and foremost, do I think Channing Tatum would be a good Gambit? I actually like Channing Tatum. When he first came out on the scene, like with Step Up and a few of those movies, yeah, he really sucked. But he has really trained himself and gotten a lot better in the movies that he's come out with lately. And he was really good in Foxcatcher, even though that movie wasn't that great. He's awesome in the 21 and 22 Jump Street movies. He's really good when he shows up for little cameos, like he was in Haywire for a little bit and was really good. He was in a small section of The Hateful Eight and was really good in that. So, do I think he's capable enough to play Gambit? Absolutely. Is he the best person to play Gambit? Hell no. There's probably a lot better actors out there to do it. But, from a business standpoint, they throw Channing Tatum on there because Gambit, I know who Gambit is, but Gambit isn't the most recognizable X-Men. So if they just throw Gambit on a movie poster, they're going to get a lot more butts and seats in the theaters if they got Channing Tatum's name above it. So from a business standpoint, I understand them choosing Channing Tatum. Is he the best actor for it? No. Now, as far as this Gambit movie goes, for anybody that's not aware, this Gambit movie has been a complete mess as far as scheduling. So it was originally set to be directed by Rupert Wyatt, and he was the director of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which is a really good movie. He ended up leaving due to creative differences. Tatum at one point actually almost walked due to salary issues. Now it's set to be directed by Doug Liman, who directed Swingers, Born Identity, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Jumper, and Edge of Tomorrow, which is a pretty kick-ass little set of movies to have under your belt. And Channing Tatum is still attached to star in it, and he's also set to produce the movie. Now, it was originally supposed to come out, I think they moved the release date twice, but then they had a solid release date set saying that October 6th of this year, we're going to have a Gambit movie. Then Deadpool comes out this February. Absolutely destroys expectations. Destroys the box office records for a rated R comic book movie, or rated R movie in general. Then 20th Century Fox comes out. They remove Gambit from the October 6th release date, and they open up 2 release dates, one being October of next year, and one being of January of 2018. So the question is, what happened to the Gambit movie? One man's opinion, it's dead. I think there's been so many problems getting this movie off the ground, and they see what a pile of money that Deadpool just brought in, and having a really small budget. I think they made that movie for like $40 or $50 million, and they brought in almost $800 million. Now I think that their focus has shifted, so they're not focused anymore on doing solo movies with the traditional X-Men characters. You'll probably see one movie every 3 years or so with the X-Men cast, like the X-Men Apocalypse and First Class and Days of Future Past cast. But filling in the years between those movies, I think they're going to be focusing on Deadpool, they're going to be focusing on Cable, and they're going to be focusing on the X-Force. So I think for October 2017, you're probably going to see a Deadpool sequel. And for January 2018, you're probably going to see an X-Force movie. So bad news for anybody that's a huge Gambit fan. But I'm sure we're going to see Gambit eventually. I just think he's probably going to be part of an ensemble cast and not have his own movie. Moving on to my next question. Caitlin Scantlin asks, what do you think of Tom Holland as Spider-Man? What did he do right? What did he do wrong? Where does he land in reference to other Spider-Man actors? So Tom Holland was the young actor that they cast as Spider-Man, and after this deal that Sony and Marvel made where they are rebooting the Spider-Man universe for the third time. And he was just featured in Captain America Civil War. What did I think of Tom Holland? I thought he was awesome. What did he do right? Well, I mean, they're going for the younger Spider-Man in this new rebooted Marvel partnership. So they're going to be focusing a lot and trying to do a lot more stories in high school. Kevin Feige, the big boss over there at Marvel Studios, says that all of his favorite Spider-Man stories are in high school. So you probably won't see him get out of high school until maybe 3 or 4 movies in. So him being a younger actor, he did really well as far as playing the smart-ass, like, can't believe I'm surrounded by all these cool superheroes Spider-Man, which is something that we hadn't quite seen yet. You know, Tobey Maguire, who I think so far is probably the best. Jury is still out on Tom Holland. We haven't seen enough of him yet. Tobey Maguire was more the kind of the emotional, tugging on the heartstrings Spider-Man. Then Andrew Garfield came around, and his movies were supposed to be more like the darker version of Spider-Man. And Andrew Garfield was good, but I think he got a lot more credit than he deserved. You know, I feel like a lot of people loved Tobey Maguire, and then as soon as Spider-Man 3 came out, everybody was ready for something different. And then when Andrew Garfield came around, just because he wasn't Tobey Maguire, everybody just gave him all the credit in the world. I think the best thing about his movies wasn't him, it was just his chemistry with Emma Stone. So with Tom Holland, he has the potential to be the best one. Everything that he was in, the 2 scenes he was in Civil War, was great. There was nothing bad about any of it. You know, the scene that he had with Tony Stark and Aunt May in the apartment in New York was really good. And he's got a really, really good back and forth chemistry with Robert Downey Jr., which they're going to have again in this new Spider-Man Homecoming movie because he's going to be in it. And the scene, the big airport fight scene where he was swinging around in full Spider-Man mode and having a little back and forth with Captain America and a little back and forth with Bucky Barnes and back and forth with Ant-Man and all that was awesome. So, too early to tell if he's the best one, being that we've only seen 2 scenes with him, but those 2 scenes were great, and if Spider-Man Homecoming knocks it out of the park, he can definitely be the top of the 3. Moving on to Abbott Skelding asks, what is your favorite rock star cameo in a movie? Abbott, my friend, if all these questions were anonymous, I would have known that one was yours. Alright, there has been a ton of rock star cameos in a lot of movies. There's mostly comedies. Once in a while you might see, like I know Alice Cooper kind of showed up in Prince of Darkness, which is a horror movie, and obviously Rob Zombie's shown up in a couple of things. As far as my favorite rock star cameo, I'm going to talk about a little movie aptly named Rockstar. So this is a movie with Mark Wahlberg, and it's loosely based off of the story of Tim Ripper Owens. So he was the replacement singer after Rob Halford left Judas Priest. It was like the late 90s and into the 2000s. And it's loosely based off of his story where he was in a cover band for Judas Priest, and after Rob Halford left, Judas Priest got a hold of a tape of Tim Owens performing Judas Priest music and decided to bring him in to be the replacement singer based off of his performance. So that's the basic gist of the movie, only it's a different name, band, and Mark Wahlberg instead of Tim Ripper Owens. And there is a ton of rock star cameos in this movie. The main band, Steel Dragon, in the movie actually has Zakk Wylde playing the guitarist in the band, Jason Bonham. For anybody who doesn't know who Zakk Wylde is, he's the guitarist for Ozzy. You know, ever since No Rest for the Wicked, and up until this past album where he changed out guitarists. So he's been pretty much the longest standing Ozzy Osbourne guitarist, and he also does Black Label Society. Jason Bonham plays the drummer. Jason Bonham is best known for being in Foreigner, and he is the son of John Bonham, who is the drummer for Led Zeppelin. The bassist is played by Jeff Pilson, who is a member of Dokken, a big band in the 80s. And there's quite a few other little small parts, like Stephen Jenkins shows up a little bit from Third Eye Blind. But what is my favorite rock star cameo in a movie? Myles fucking Kennedy. The end of Rockstar mirrors the beginning of the movie, where he is Mark Wahlberg is watching this band Steel Dragon live, and he's singing and actually over-singing the singer with the microphone, and the singer takes note of it and just kind of smiles. Well, at the end of the movie, when Mark Wahlberg is on stage, there's another fan in the pit singing along and over-singing Mark Wahlberg, and he actually brings the guy on stage to do like a little duet and kind of give a fan like one of those rock star moments. And the fan is played by Myles Kennedy. Nobody knew who Myles Kennedy was when this movie came out, which is why it's so cool. He was just, the guy at the end of Rockstar. Myles Kennedy is way, way, way well known now. He's the lead singer of Alter Bridge, one of my favorite bands, and easily one of the best bands playing and writing music today. He is the lead singer for Slash's solo band. He has done a lot of side projects here and there. He's done a lot of guest vocals. A lot of people would rather see a Guns N' Roses reunion with him in the frontman spot versus Axl Rose. The guy is just a phenomenal, phenomenal singer and songwriter. And it's very cool knowing that he's one of my favorite artists now, and that you can go back and watch Rockstar, and it's like, holy crap, that's Myles Kennedy. So that is my favorite Rockstar cameo. King Win asks, they're thinking of casting Idris Elba as the next James Bond. I'm thinking it's a good idea, but could really mix up the entire timeline. What's your thoughts? So, after Spectre, which is the most recent James Bond movie, Daniel Craig went out in a bunch of interviews and basically just blasted his experience as James Bond. He said, I think he actually said that he would rather cut his wrists than play James Bond in another movie. I don't know the full story of what happened to him on the sets of these movies. I don't know if it was actually just a miserable experience with the directors, or if MGM was just really hard to work with, or if he just didn't like all the physicality of the role, or what the problem was. But it always really aggravates the shit out of me when an actor shits all over the role that made him famous. I was very aggravated with Robert Downey Jr. for a while there before he kind of realized that Marvel is his cash cow. Right before he came out with that movie, The Judge, he was always kind of on the fence in all these interviews. Well, I don't know if I'm going to play Iron Man anymore. I don't know if I'm going to do these movies anymore. And I think I'm done. And blah, 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 blah. And it was really aggravating because it's like, okay, dude, you would not have a career. You would still be a has-been had you not played Iron Man, had you not played Tony Stark. And this is a similar situation where he was just shitting all over James Bond. And this is just my opinion, but who would know who Daniel Craig is without Casino Royale? So, nevertheless, Daniel Craig is done as James Bond. And they've been kicking around quite a few names out in the Twitter sphere about who they would want to replace Daniel Craig as the new James Bond. And there's two big names that have been kicked around the most. One of them is Tom Hiddleston, who plays Loki in the Thor movies and in the Avengers. And he's, the typical white, kind of suave British guy, so he would be a really good fit for James Bond. The other person who's been kicked around is Idris Elba. So anybody that doesn't know who Idris Elba is, he's been around for quite a while. He first kind of showed up in... He's best known for playing Luther, which is a BBC series, and he was in The Wire. But as far as movies, the first thing that I saw him in was American Gangster. And he's slowly been creeping up and popping up in a lot of things lately. He did the voice of Shere Khan in The Jungle Book. He was in that movie The Beast of No Nation last year, which got a lot of acclaim. He's going to be playing, or he was in Pacific Rim. He's going to be playing the villain in Star Trek Beyond. He's just all over the place. And Idris Elba is a bad motherfucker. Would he be an awesome James Bond? You're damn right he would. He's an awesome actor. He can hold his own with the action scenes, and it doesn't really hurt that he's a panty dropper. Now, is he going to get chosen for the role? I don't really think so. And the reason why is with all the drama that just got kicked up with Daniel Craig, they're going to be looking for somebody to play James Bond and stick as James Bond for quite a while. And Idris Elba is 43 years old. Now, Daniel Craig was only like 36, I think, when they made Casino Royale. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't use Idris Elba, But if they make Idris Elba the new James Bond, they make these James Bond movies about every 2 to 4 years. I think Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace was about a 2-year gap, and then there was like 4 years until Skyfall came, and then 3 until Spectre. So we'll say 3 years, just give it an average. So if he gets cast today as James Bond, that means that he'll either be playing James Bond as a 43-year-old by the end of this year, or he'll be 44 playing his first movie. Then 45 by the time the movie actually reaches theaters. And then you add another 3 years. Now he's 48 doing the second movie. 49 by the time it comes out in theaters. Now you add another 3 years. Now he's going to be 52 filming the third movie. Now there's plenty of 50, 60, and 70-year-olds out there that can hold their own on the screen and do action scenes and all that kind of stuff just fine. But I think with all the stuff that they had intended Daniel Craig to play James Bond for quite a while. I think they wanted to get at least another 2 or 3 movies out of him. So they're going to be picking somebody younger so that they can lock them in with a contract and say, okay, dude, you're playing James Bond for the next 15 years. But if they end up picking Idris Elba, you're not going to see me complaining because that guy's awesome. Last but not least, Rich Leach asks, what are some sequels that are actually better than the original? Now, this is something that when I first read it, I thought I was going to have some trouble finding a good list. And surprisingly to me, I found actually a pretty huge list of sequels that are better than the original. Now, keep in mind, this is all my opinion, so I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people who like the originals better than these sequels, but I'm just going to rattle off some of these and talk about a few of them. Lethal Weapon 2, to me, is better than the original. The Dark Knight is better than the Batman Begins. Captain America Winter Soldier is a huge step up from Captain America the First Avenger. My favorite of the Bourne movies is the third one, The Bourne Ultimatum. A movie that gets argued a lot is Aliens. Some people love the original with Ridley Scott, the horror kind of aspect, and some people prefer James Cameron's more action-packed sequel, Aliens. Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, I think, is a funnier sequel. Blade 2. Terminator 2 Judgment Day is one I don't think anybody can argue. As awesome as the original Terminator is, Terminator 2 is just cemented into being one of the greatest action movies of all time. Fast 5. As much as I love the first 4 Fast and Furious movies, Fast 5 brought it to a whole new level. Army of Darkness. The Hunger Games Catching Fire. The Road Warrior. The Mission Impossible movies is actually one of those rare movie franchises where it almost seems like every single sequel is better than the last one. So you had Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible 2 is more the action-packed one that I like. Mission Impossible 3 was directed by J.J. Abrams. That had more kind of that more of spy flavor. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, which is probably my favorite of all of them, came out and blew everybody's minds. And then Mission Impossible Rogue Nation came out this past year, and a lot of people argue that it's better than the fourth one. They're pretty close. I still like the fourth one better. But Rogue Nation came out, and everybody was blown away by that one, and now they're actually keeping the same director, Christopher McQuarrie, and he's going to be directing the next Mission Impossible movie that'll probably come out next year. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Now, as awesome as Rise of the Planet of the Apes was, Dawn was my favorite movie of that year. Spider-Man 2. The one with Tobey Maguire, the one directed by Sam Raimi, with Dr. Octopus. That one is better than the original with Willem Dafoe playing Green Goblin. This is a big one. The Empire Strikes Back. Now, I know there's a lot of purists out there that will stand by Star Wars A New Hope before anything else, but Empire Strikes Back is my favorite of the Star Wars movies. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. That's a movie where Star Trek's kind of famous for every other movie being good, and the original Star Trek movie is not very well received, and the second one is the one that everybody hails as the best one. X-Men 2, X-Men United, and X-Men Days of Future Past. So I'm going to back up and talk about just a few of these really quick. I will start off with Captain America Winter Soldier. Now, when Captain America the First Avenger came out, it was the last of the solo standalone Marvel movies before the big team-up movie, The Avengers. And Captain America the First Avenger is a very, very cool throwback, like 1960s war movie. And when Captain America Winter Soldier was coming out, everybody kind of expected that it would keep the same tone as the first Avenger, kind of that light-hearted, throwback, almost tongue-in-cheek kind of feel. Captain America Winter Soldier came out and blew everybody's minds. Nobody would have thought that you could make a superhero movie that was basically just an old school, like a 70s spy thriller, and have it work. And the action scenes in Captain America Winter Soldier are some of the best that you will see in any action movie. Not just superhero movies, but action movies in general. I mean, starting off with the whole raid on the ship in the beginning of the movie, which has got some of the best fight choreography you're going to see. And then the scene in the elevator where everybody tries to jump Captain Rogers. And you have the scene with Nick Fury where he is getting attacked and he's inside that car with that gigantic turret. They added in a really good side character with having Black Widow kind of play off of him the whole movie. And that's one of the few times you'll ever see a major male character and a major female character have kind of that platonic relationship where you're not expecting them to hook up by the end of the movie. You get the fact that they're just really close and they're partners and they're there to kick ass together, but there's no romanticism just kind of shoehorned into the movie. So from start to finish, that movie is just badass. The Dark Knight. Now, The Dark Knight, before all this Marvel Cinematic Universe came out, The Dark Knight was kind of everybody calls it the godfather of the superhero movies. So Batman Begins came out and just revitalized, especially Batman, but a lot of the superhero movies in general. Because before that, really good superhero movies were few and far between, and nobody really quite took it seriously yet. And then Christopher Nolan came on the scene with Batman Begins and just totally changed the game. Now, Batman Begins is awesome, but of the three, it's the most comic booky of the three. It's very kind of has like a brown tint to it, and there's a lot of villains and tone and story points in that movie that just jump right off a comic book page. Then The Dark Knight came out, and The Dark Knight was basically like a detective crime thriller, kind of like in the vein of Heat, but with Batman in it. Fast Five. Now this one is kind of a cool one because the Fast and the Furious movies up until Fast Five were more of a guilty pleasure than anything else. You know, the first one came on the scene and it was basically like a remake to Point Break that nobody wanted to call a remake to Point Break. And it was really cool when it came out, and I was a fan of it. Then they had the second one come out, and that's when Vin Diesel was kind of just starting to come on the scene, and they were trying to shove him into every movie, and he decided that he was not going to stick with Fast and the Furious forever. So he left after the first movie, and they came out with the second movie, which is more of a goofy sequel. Then Paul Walker leaves the franchise, and they come out with the straight-to-video, the it might have been in theaters, but Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. And I like the third one a lot, but once a franchise like that starts hitting the bargain bin type movies, you could pretty much put a pin in it and it's dead. Then, out of nowhere, Fast and Furious comes out, and all the original cast of the Fast and Furious comes back. You got Paul Walker, you've got Vin Diesel, you've got Jordana Brewster. Fast and Furious was a very cool throwback and a decent leap forward for the franchise. Then those pictures came out online with Vin Diesel, who is not a small guy, standing next to The Rock, and only The Rock can make Vin Diesel look like a bitch. All it took was one picture of The Rock's character, Hobbs, staring down Vin Diesel's character, and everybody was bought in for Fast Five. And Fast Five took the Fast and Furious franchise and catapulted it into this crazy, ridiculous, over-the-top badass action franchise. And now we have Fast and Furious 6, which even upped it even more. Fast and Furious 7, they got 8 coming out, and there's plans for a 9 and a 10. So Fast 5 alone basically breathed life into the franchise. And the other one I'm going to talk about is The Road Warrior. Now, Mad Max came out, and it was a very independent feeling Australian post-apocalyptic movie. And Mad Max is a very good movie, but it's the most different and the most unique of the franchise. And it doesn't quite have that Mad Max style to it yet. That Mad Max style came from The Road Warrior. So Mad Max basically just followed Mel Gibson's character, where it's supposed to be this post-apocalyptic world, and he's just one of these cops that runs around trying to police what is left of humanity. And his wife and his daughter get killed, and he just goes out on a revenge. So the first one's more like a revenge story. Then The Road Warrior comes out, and Mad Max is more like a drifter. And he becomes just kind of this force that exists out in the Australian outback. And The Road Warrior took where the first movie was just a simple revenge story, and The Road Warrior came out, and it becomes about large stunts and just car mayhem and explosions and chase scenes and just action-packed sequel. And the sequel pretty much focuses more on creating these real colorful, wild-ass looking post-apocalyptic villains. Like, I believe the guy's name was like Lord Humongous or something in the second one, but it goes from just regular Joes that look like they live out in the outback to the sequel where they're wearing leather and they're wearing like these face masks, and then you get all the way into Fury Road where they got spikes coming out of everything and they're spray painting their face, and it's just a crazy, crazy world, and that all got birthed out of the sequel, The Road Warrior. So The Road Warrior is definitely a sequel that improves on the original. Well, that is the end of my Q&A, guys. Like I said, please keep sending me these questions on Facebook or Instagram or anywhere you can get a hold of me. And I'll keep doing these episodes as long as I keep getting these good questions flooded in. And the one or two that I get, if I don't have enough for a whole episode, I'll just tie them into to the back end of my movie news episodes on Mondays. So thank you for the questions, and I will see you guys in the next episode.